let's go ahead and have you click on that Kangarootime logo, and we'll get into the rooming module. So once we get into the rooming module, we cannot access this main menu until we log out and back in. This is where all the fun stuff happens. So here what we're looking at is there's one employee that is clocked in on the right-hand side. We know that because their photo shows up. If you don't see an employee's photo somewhere in the rooming module, it means they're not currently clocked in. Okay. Anytime you're doing an action in the rooming module, you have to select which teacher or employee is doing that action. And the way that you do that is by selecting their photo. So if Mary, you're doing an action in here, you're selecting your photo to indicate that you're taking responsibility for it. Okay. Again, that's because we assume you're sharing a tablet.
Okay.
So you see those blue buttons, check in, check out, messages. If you deselect your photo real quick, those all turn gray.
Okay.
You can't do an action if you haven't said who's doing it.
Got it.
All right, so really, I said the first step that you'll do as a teacher when you arrive is clock in. And really, I would do that from the rooming module. As soon as you get logged into Kangarootime, because it does log employees out every 8 hours just of inactivity. So you'll log in. Whoever logs in first doesn't matter, because once you're in the rooming module, you have no idea who logged in first. So you could have 5 teachers here that are clocked in, and we still don't know who originally logged into this session. Okay. So it doesn't really matter. So really the second thing you would do after you clock in is you would open up your new group. So if you click on that green button at the top that says new group, you won't be able to select a group until you say who's opening this group. So Mary is selecting which group she's going to be working in today. So we don't assume that it's going to be the same every morning or every day. We also assume that teachers might be moving in and out of classrooms throughout the day.
Right.
But go ahead and select a group. And all of these actions should happen immediately. And if there's a delay or it doesn't happen and the page has to be refreshed, most likely that comes down to an internet issue.
Okay.
So if you find that happening, you're going to get a little frustrated.
So should I see something right now?
You should see yourself in a group. So go ahead and hit refresh, and you'll see that.
Yep.
So if you're having to hit refresh every time, it means that there's the internet is not quite catching that action.
Huh. Okay.
So when I do that, it happens immediately. Okay. That circle shows up in the middle of the screen immediately. So so keep in mind on a tablet, you can pinch zoom in to your screen in case things are a little small. And so that circle looks real tiny, of course, on a big monitor, but you can always zoom in and out as needed. So here what we're looking at is there's one group open. There's one teacher that's currently clocked in and waiting for kids to arrive. The GSRP1 group automatically opened with a 1:18 ratio, and it doesn't really matter what that group's ratio is supposed to be until there are children in it. So until there are children in a group, all of your groups are going to show up with a 1:18 ratio at first.
Okay.
As soon as children are checked in and placed into the group, Kangarootime will calculate what the ratio is supposed to be based on the age of the youngest child in that group.
Okay.
So once we start placing kids in here, that ratio will probably go down. So even your infants group will open with a 1:18 ratio, and I can't imagine that would be an accurate ratio.
No.
That'd be a crazy room. Yeah. So that's your first step, though, is clocking in as a teacher. Second step is opening up your new group. Okay. The reason it's important to open up your group as soon as possible is because as soon as kids start getting checked in, they will be automatically placed into their group if their group is open. And if they have really it's their primary group. The concept of primary group is where it's when this really comes into play. The primary group assignment for each child. So if a child's primary group is GSRP1, and the group is already open when the child is checked in, their circle, their photo will automatically show up in that group.
Okay.
Otherwise, you'd have to manually place kids into the groups, which is fine. It's not too difficult, but we might as well be as efficient as possible and save teachers time by placing kids into their primary group if we're able to.
Okay.
So so here we would be able to tell if any kids had a pending check-in request. First of all, their photo would show up on the left-hand side under where it says children, kind of a little search bar that says children. If any child had a pending check-in request, their photo would show up underneath that with a kangaroo flashing over their face.
Oh, okay.
So we don't really have to be on the lookout for kids needing to be to have their check-in request confirmed. It would just be very obvious. But the only exception is if the child with a pending check-in request, if their primary group was GSRP1, their circle with the flashing kangaroo would show up in that circle instead of on the left-hand side. And then that teacher would just confirm the pending check-in request, which we haven't gone over yet.
Okay.
So it just kind of depends on what their group is and whether the group is open yet or not. So whether they show up on the side, kind of in a queue on the left-hand side, or if they show up in their circle, in their group.
Okay.
When a parent arrives at the school, like I said earlier, they will log into their parent account either through the app or the website, and they'll request check-in, only if they have check-in and out privileges. And they're going to be asked to choose which children or child they want to check in. There could be multiples. And they're going to be prompted to enter in a PIN number that they created when they registered their account. It's a 4-digit PIN number that only they have access to. You guys don't have access to their PIN number. So if a parent says they forgot it, they just need to log into their account to view or edit that PIN number. As soon as they request check-in or out, the child will have a bouncing kangaroo show up over their face, and that's how you know that there's a request for check-in or out. And the reason that we have a 2-step process of a pending check-in, pending check-out request is that we don't want parents to just drop off their child and check them in without a teacher being notified about that. We really want that to be on your radar so that you lay eyes on the child, you see the child and you say, yep, I'm taking responsibility for this child, and you don't confirm the check-in request until you do take responsibility for them and you're saying that you're transitioning that custody basically. So we've heard stories about centers not knowing that children were there, so they weren't really accounted for. There's one example that always gives me the chills. This one school, before they started using Kangarootime, a parent did a drop and dash where they just dropped off the child and went to work. They didn't tell their teacher that they were there. They just dropped off the kid. The kid went and hid behind a chair in the class, his favorite hiding spot. And nobody knew that the child was there. They were hiding. Parent didn't notify the teacher that they were there. And a few minutes later, they had a fire drill. So everybody evacuated the building. So all the kids were accounted for because they didn't know there was that missing little kid hiding behind the chair. So when they went back in, they found the child there, and thankfully it was a drill. But what if it had been a real emergency? And unfortunately, the teacher of that class was let go because they were responsible for this child, but they didn't. The poor teacher didn't even know that they were there. So with this system, requesting a check-in. And having the teacher having to confirm it helps to avoid that scenario.
Yeah.
Are you able to log into your parent account?
I had to get a new password, so I'm re-entering it now.
Okay.
So sorry.
That's okay. It's good practice having to use the forgot password feature.
Yeah.
So parents and employees, if they forget their password, there is a forgot password link. It will send a verification code to the email that's on file just to make sure that that the right person is updating the password.
Okay, I am logging in my fake child.
All right. So tell us what you're seeing on your screen.
I see my child's picture came up, so I checked on that. I clicked on that, and it came to a check-in, check-out button, and the check-in button is purple, so I clicked on that. All
All
right, so
right. So you
I've
see
logged
that.
in. I've
There we
logged in
go.
my fake child. So this is
There
what.
we go.
Okay.
We got that flashing kangaroo over this cute little kiddo's face. We got Madison. She has a pending check-in request. So what we know so far is that the parent has requested check-in for this child. They have not been confirmed, and we know that their primary group is not GSRP1. Otherwise, their circle would have shown up, or their photo would have shown up in that group's circle around the edges where that blue outline is.
Yeah.
So, and that's fine. We know that kids might be in different groups. Like if their teacher, the classroom that they're normally in, maybe their teacher is out sick today, so you have to spread kids out into other groups or something like that. So the way that we get this child into their group is manually. And remember, every time you're doing an action as a teacher, you have to select which teacher is doing this action. So it doesn't matter which order you select the photos, but I get in the mindset of which teacher is doing this action. So I click my photo. So you're going to click your photo in the middle, and which child this action is for. And then you click Madison's photo. And then you click the white part of the group they need to be moved into. So Mary, you were going to go click on the blue check-in button, and that would have been absolutely fine to check the child in first before moving them into the group. So it will come down to what your guys' preference is of whether you want to confirm the check-in request first and then move them into the group, or vice versa. It'll just be a preference for you guys, what you prefer.
Okay.
To confirm the pending check-in request, we do need to click the blue check-in button somehow. Either from this view, there's one other view that we can do it from.
Oh. I don't
So
know
you
how I
open up
just did this.
got to a new screen. So this is the individual room view. So Mary, what you did is you just clicked in the white part of the circle.
Yeah.
And that gets you to this zoomed in view. And this really is the view that you're probably going to be having, your teachers are going to be using this most often throughout the day. It's focusing just on their group, not on the whole school. But as an administrator who wants to kind of keep tabs on what's happening throughout the school, it would be more like you're viewing the room view instead of the individual group view.
Right.
But to get back to that big view, let's click on the room view blue button in the upper right-hand corner. So we're going to click room view. All right, so we have two ways of confirming the check-in request for this child. We do need to select the teacher's photo, so which teacher is confirming this, and then the blue check-in button from the left, on the upper left there. So this view is going to show you any child who has a pending check-in request and any child who, an entire school who is not checked in already.
Okay.
So this does not narrow down the list of kids by group. This is the entire school.
Okay.
But I'll show you how to focus just on your group. So I don't want to confirm this check-in quite yet. I want to show you a couple other things first, or one other thing really. I want you to use the X in the upper right-hand corner. So now what I want you to do is deselect your photo in the middle, and now I want you to click on the white part of the inner circle the way you did it unintentionally before.
Okay.
So I want to show you how to check kids in from this view. It's going to look a little bit different. You're going to select your photo again, and you're going to click that blue check-in button at the top. So there's no wrong way to do this. I just wanted you to see that there's two different views. This view here is going to narrow it down to any child who is either currently in your group or has this group assigned as their primary group. So it's a much shorter list of kids.
Okay.
It's not the entire school's worth. So this is probably the view your teachers are going to want to focus on. So by clicking the check-in view from just their individual room, their individual circle.
Okay.
So now, if we know that Madison is here, we see Madison, she's right in front of us, we feel comfortable saying, yep, I'm going to take Madison into my custody. I'm responsible for her. I'm going to confirm the check-in request. All you're going to do is click the profile photo of the person that dropped her off. But for for pickup purposes, that's crucial, right? Making sure
Right.
that photo matches that person. That's where I'd be really concerned.